Touch ID was introduced on the iPhone 5S. It's now pretty standard across iPhones and iPads. It allows the user to authenticate themselves, to log into the device, and even to make purchases using their fingerprint. And it's actually really easy for developers to use as well. So let's see how it's done. We'll create a new project called Touch ID Demo. We're not going to worry about version control on this one. And we'll do everything we need in viewcontroller.swift. And all we're going to do is authenticate the user when they open the app in the viewDidLoad method. So how do we do that? We start by creating an authentication context, which is going to be a local authentication context. Hopefully spelled right. Which will of course work after I've imported local authentication framework. And then we take our authentication context and we evaluate the policy. So that option there. And then the policy that we want to evaluate is device owner authentication with biometrics. And then we need to give a reason which will be displayed to the user. So something like that, something a bit better than that. And then we'll get a success boolean and possibly an error message. And then we just need to set up as we're very used to doing. For all the different possibilities. So if we get a success, then all is well. If not, there might be an error, in which case let's print the error. And if there's no error, then that means the user cancelled the authentication or simply could not authenticate themselves. And that's pretty much it. The only change I'd like to make before actually running it on the device is to check that the user does have the ability to enter a Touch ID. And we can do that using if authentication context.can evaluate policy. And the policy we want to check is device owner authentication with biometrics. And we need something that I don't think we've met before, an NS error pointer. Pointers are part of the C language and they essentially point to a variable value. We can set them up here by having an error message, which has a type of an optional NS error message. And then to point to that variable, we use the ampersand symbol and then the variable name. So error in this case. And then we surround the inner part in curly brackets. So here we would have print device does not have Touch ID, or of course it might be disabled. All right. So to see this in action, I'm just going to update main storyboard to have a single label. Always have to add something twice for some reason in this version of Xcode. So So stretch it out and center. And just in case, we'll have lots of lines there in case we get a lengthy error message. And then we'll control drag to the viewcontroller.swift. And then I'm just going to update that label with the message. So result label.text is user has authenticated. Similarly here, with a self. Here we've got did not authenticate. And here, because I haven't examined the error yet, we'll just give it a generic error message. Okay, so now you'll notice I've added my phone, so I've connected my phone and I'm going to run the app on the device. Obviously the simulator doesn't have Touch ID, so you do need to run this on the device. And go back a couple of sections if you haven't set up your device for running apps on. It's just before the How to Submit to the App Store lecture. And here we go. So I'm going to authenticate myself and the label will update with user has authenticated. There we go. Wonderful. Let's just make sure that the error works as well. So if I run the app again, and this time I press cancel, then the label will update with error. And there we go. So we've got Touch ID up and running on our device, and that's great for security-minded users or apps that contain financial information or anything that's of a secretive nature. Next, we're going to see how we can send push notifications to our users on their iOS devices.